I have to click the got it button. So we're down to 3 of us. This is excellent.
For now.
Well, you know, the funny thing about this, it's not about numbers. Jesus had 12 disciples, and it's like I always look at everything as energetic. It's like I'm putting out a declaration of my certainty into the world. And if I think that has to look anything like establishing something, I'm screwed. Because my whole viewpoint is to be unconcerned either for or against what anything looks like, in the acceptance that it's always perfect. And as I refuse to compromise that, what is not helpful will naturally fall away. Okay? What is not helpful in my own process, in my own doing, in my own thing, will naturally fall away. When Jesus said, like, there's 2 in 10,000 that'll hear this, he meant it. You know, he totally meant it. There's 2 in 10,000 that really want to go the distance on this. And I was been looking at that. I know we're supposed to be reading a 20-minute book, but I've been looking at the idea of, you know, you are blessed every time you bring a brother to the place where the journey ends. It's like, because as a teacher, my job's done there. I can't teach you or show you how to get any further than that. Beyond that, it's God's domain and the domain of the Holy Spirit within you, your own guidance. So all teachers, all external teachers, you know, all these G's and Gunga G's and whatever that historically have been identified as the guru or the external teacher, me and whoever. All of us, our purpose is to do ourselves out of a job, fundamentally. It's like by keeping my finger here, and it's like the more I go about this, the more that I'm able to offer. You know, as you teach it, you hear it and you learn it, and then you offer it and whatever. And once you've learnt that particular teaching, you don't need to keep teaching it, because the catalyst that shows you the necessity for needing to keep teaching it just falls away as you've learned it. It'd be pointless to learn a lesson that you just have to keep continually learning for no reason. So it integrates into your being, and even in this world, even though everything still seems to beset you on all sides, your being changes. Those shifts in consciousness that occur change your way of seeing things to such a degree that sometimes initially in the beginning you can pick up on it and you'll say, oh my God, I used to be like this and now I'm like that, and something's happened in my mind, these things. But as you get further on and the denial becomes more subtle, so the shifts accordingly are quite subtle, and you don't tend to pick up on them, except sometimes like down the track where you can reflect back off long-term relationships or memories, let's say, of things that you've had from a long time ago, and see how that you feel differently about them now than you did way back then, right? I used to think my favorite color was red. Now 10 years on, I've been doing this course, and now it's actually blue. And you kind of get to the point and you go, how could I have ever believed that my favorite color was red? You know, like that's a miscreated color or something. Just an example. But those shifts become so subtle, you don't even notice them, and you don't necessarily need to notice them, because by the time you get to a certain point where you're over the event horizon of having to put conscious effort into your transformation, it's too late. You can't do it. You can't go back even if you wanted to. There's nothing to go back to. And the realization that going back to the old way of seeing maybe still holds some allure becomes something that you just laugh at. Like, what the hell would I even, you know? And you either refuse to go ahead and you can't go back, which means you're stuck in this rock and a hard place, or you simply accept the inner guidance and go ahead anyway. And it's not like go ahead implies distance. It implies ascension or opening of the mind further and further and further to non-physical reality. So, which is what reality actually is. As it is, not as I would have it be. Okay. I can't get my nose into this cup. It has a very small It's terrible. Like, you know, the parable of you wash the outside of the cup, but you don't wash the inside. I can't wash the inside. Look, I can't even get my fingers in there with a cloth. I'm going to need a miracle. It's going to take a miracle to wash the inside of my new cup. But I like the idea I wanted to do today of to bring you guys to the end of the road, which is always the determination to be still and know that I'm God. It's always that place where you enter into that moment of nothingness. And we were talking about Tina doing a light session and a exercise on listening. Right. So with that in mind, you have to understand why it is you're listening and what you're listening for. Otherwise, the chit chat that goes on in here will give you all sorts of things that will tell you what you're listening for. And some of them will be wrapped in very spiritual sort of veneer, you know, and you'll think I'm listening for a specific voice, or I'm listening for something I can identify as God, or whatever. And it may or may not come out that way, but more often than not, your listening is for a sense of things, a feeling, right? And when you're listening, I was listening to Alan Watts this morning at about 6 a.m. and he did a beautiful teaching on listening. And he was saying, when you're listening to my voice, you're listening to it in your mind. I'm not out here talking to you. And as you close your eyes and listen without trying to judge what's being said, you come to realize that the inner world and the outer world are the same, right? That what you think I'm saying out here is nothing more than thoughts in your mind telling you what you think it is that I'm saying, okay? Now, in our mind training, we're learning, of course, not to listen to that voice that tells us what we think it is, and we're learning to listen to it as it is, okay? So in listening, when we do our silent listening and our inner listening, if we were to use those last lessons of the course, the last 5, where we say God is and then we cease to speak, okay? Now, in my mind, let's say when I first started doing those lessons, I would say God is, and then we cease to speak, and I'd repeat to myself, and now I cease to speak, right? And I would give myself this little inner narration about being quiet rather than actually being quiet, you know? And I kept bouncing off that inner narration and actual quietness. So, and then I'd have a little thought would pop in, yep, this is pretty quiet, which would disturb the silence again, you know, and, you know, you go through that. You just go through that period, right? And so what happens is, as you practice more and more and more not listening to that voice, you actually kind of push it to the side a little, and you can feel it trying to creep back in, but you can also feel the void, the emptiness, or the depth of the silence ahead of you, let's say. I don't know how to really describe this because we're talking about something that occurs in consciousness, not in shapes and forms and things like that. So what happens is you feel the yearning of wanting to say something with that internal dialogue or examine something. You can feel it, like, you know, when someone's telling you something and you want to say your thing, it's like it's the same thing in here, right? So I'm trying to be quiet, but I still want to say something about being quiet. You can feel that urgency or that whatever impressing upon you, and you're training yourself, no, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not even going to listen to the thoughts that tell me I'm not going to listen to that. I'm just going to enter into the silence. So you enter into the silence, and at first you can't sit very silently for a while because these thoughts, they cloak themselves in spiritual garb and try to tell you what listening to the silence is or should be, or how you do it, and all these sorts of things, which can be very annoying. But eventually what happens is, with your mind training, persistence pays off and determination pays off, and you find that you do enter into a moment of silence, right? Now, when you enter into that moment of silence, at first, there's always the examination of it. Is this it? Is this the silence that I'm supposed to be, you know, and you're letting go. And you can feel that voice, because it can't follow you here, right? You can feel that voice fading off as you become more determined. And this is where we do our grounding lessons. You know, when I tell you guys about reading the 20-minute book, and it's like get in your body, get really grounded, really centered, really focused. Learning how to focus and be really grounded is just as important as anything else in the spiritual determination, in your spiritual efforts. All right. So in your meditation, when you go into the silence, there is a sense of determination. There is a sense of purpose. There is a sense of, but there's no words, no verbiage attached to it. It's just like, I'm doing this, and, you know, and you sort of hunker down and you do it. And when you slip into that silent place, you can feel a kind of a draw, like it's as if it's pulling you. And I don't know, this is the bit I don't know how to talk about. It's like a magnetic force. Like, you know, when if you ever stepped on ice, like on an icy ground, and you can feel your feet starting to slip out from under you, and you want to try and get your balance again. That's what happens in this place in your mind, right? So there's this kind of, whoa, like as if you're going to lose your mind and go crazy and be sucked into this slippery kind of, you know, and you're gone. But that's what we're learning not to be afraid of. Okay. So in our listening, what I'm offering you is to be still and let that actually happen. Right? It's going to take you into a moment of terror, as if your foot's going on the ice and you are going to slip, and it's going to hurt your tailbone and your hands, and you're going to go down hard, right? But all that happens is you'll slip into a moment of perfect stillness, and you'll be actually out the other side before you go in, and you'll experience direct light, right? Some of you guys are experiencing that already. I've had a few of you tell me over the last, whatever we've been doing these things, oh, I saw some light and I went in. What's her name? Anyway, just the other week was talking about it. So that's with listening, and I want to do an exercise of listening today. Okay, so if you think of listening as in stages, there's a decision to listen. I'm going to choose to listen. And it always helps if you have a valid reason for why you're listening. A situation or a conundrum or a whatever, or perhaps it's a deep felt burning desire to know your father, right? That usually doesn't show up until you've been through a whole bunch of other crap, right? Until you've realized that the world offers you nothing and you just want God. That's it. Until then, what happens is your prayers and your determination tend to be more for a peaceful world rather than just wanting God, right? It's the same thing seen rightly, but one is externalizing, or one is compartmentalizing rather into individual relationship facets, which will eventually make up the whole, and the other one's going for the whole 9 yards all at once. Does that make sense? So in one of those approaches, I'm looking at my prayers. It's like, oh, this situation with my brother or my sister or my whatever, I'd like healing there, and commensurate to whatever integrity of prayer you have with that, you'll receive the answer in a way you can understand it. Okay. When you just want the truth, you can't receive an answer as in a way that you can understand it, because the truth is literally not understandable to the human mind. Right? What happens is you have to enter into direct communion with the experience itself as the experience. Experiencer and experience are not separate, right? You are God already, imagining yourself to be something else. So the something else that you think you are now as a Tina or an Anna has to be left behind, right? Or discarded like an old coat for you to enter into what you truly are and where you are always in the moment of direct union with God. Does that make sense? That's where the terror comes in, because in that moment of stillness, you'll feel like you're going to completely lose yourself, right? As if your mind is suddenly being sucked out, drawn away from you, and you'll try to recoil from it so you can recover what you think sanity is. But what you think sanity is isn't sanity, it's insanity. What you think reality is isn't reality, it's unreality. Right? Reality is in the moment of discovery when you leave your body, you leave the vessel, you awaken from the dream of bodies, and you find yourself in eternity as pure spirit. Right? Now, in your mind, you'll be like, but what is pure spirit? What actually is that? Is it my consciousness? Is it some Casper the Friendly Ghost kind of thing? Where do I go with that? I don't have a reference for it. And you're not going to have a reference for it because that's what it is you've forgotten. I've forgotten what I am because I've forgotten what God is. But the memory's been kept for me in the mind of God. So therefore, it's in the mind of God you have to go to recover that memory. Okay? You're on a journey into the mind of God. Okay? And you'll be looking around going, how can that be possible? I'm just little old me sitting in a Zoom meeting, blah, 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 blah. And all of these sorts of frameworks for defense against it will show up, right? And the closer you get to that moment of experience, the more defense you're going to find, right? Which in our activity is actually helpful. We want to find our defenses so we can heal our mind of them, right? So every time we take a step together in this, hopefully, if we're honest, we'll come into contact with our defenses and our resistance and our blocks and our everything else, which is actually a good thing. That's what we're here to do. That makes sense, Anna. Right? We're here to find our shit. We're here to experience the crap. Right? Because to us, that's useful. To normal human beings, it's a pain in the ass. Right? Because they've forgotten that that's what they actually signed up for at the bloody travel agent. I've signed up for a pain in the ass journey to nowhere, doing nothing, and I want to defend myself about the whole thing all the way through, right? That's not useful unless death is your goal, but we've chosen that eternal life is what we are. It's not that it can actually really be a goal, because our goal in the course is peace, which will lead us to the memory of what we are, okay? You can't set a goal to be something that you actually already are, and you can't find something that's not actually lost, but you can remember that it's not lost, right? In the moment you remember it's not lost, you'll remember where it is, and your mind will automatically want to go there, and your whole thing is to allow it to do that, right? Your part is not to interfere. Your part is to get out of the way and just let it happen, right? Let it be miraculous. All right. So we're always looking at little practice moments of releasing fear, releasing our defenses, releasing fear, releasing defenses, all these sorts of things, right, in our relationships. And they're really good learning curves. But so in our listening exercise we'll do in a minute, and I don't know if anyone else is going to come on, but I'm not going to run through this whole preamble again. In the in the listening exercises that we're going to do in a minute, what I want to do is take a moment beforehand to prepare myself, yourself, whatever, okay, to prepare for the idea that we're actually going to be listening. Okay, we're going to set up the parameters for what our listening is going to be for us, in a way that all three of us are going to understand it. Okay. Otherwise, the distraction and the tendency for mind wandering is going to be quite strong. Okay. So I'm going to give you a guided listening meditation, I guess, in a sense, and talk you through it to a point where when I stop talking, hopefully you'll find yourself in an action of pure listening without wondering about what you're listening for and having all of that interference. Okay. Now, both of you guys, actually, it's not surprising that there's only the two of you here. Both of you guys are actually at the same kind of thing in this together, having different situations, but your intensity and your vibration are both pretty much exactly on par. And there's a shift in this that can occur because all shifts come through inner listening. Because when you're inner listening and you're inner hearing, the only reason that you're inner hearing is because there's a greater shift, a greater adding of the light for you that is waiting for you to embrace it, waiting for you to occur in you. Right? We're not here to stay on step number one. It's like Jacob's ladder. We've got to keep climbing that ladder to get to the place where, when I tell you that we're going to the place where the dream ends and where the dream actually ends, come together. Okay? It's like that, the restaurant at the end of, have you seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy yet? You still haven't seen it. You're such a lazy bones. So in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the Earth is destroyed by aliens, and I forget his name, but him and his guide, they have to go to the place where planets are made to get a new Earth, right? So they can put him back on his planet where he's meant to be, not in his out of time kind of out of sequence experience, because he wasn't supposed to be there. And so they go and see the planet makers, who are these guys. There's this massive part of the cosmos where they build planets and they add mountains, and it's like Play-Doh, you know, they just make it and then put people and things. And while they're waiting for the planet, they go to the end of the universe, the restaurant at the end of the universe, to watch the universe end and start again and again, because it's always starting and ending. So, but on an individual level, the point where it's starting and ending in you is always going to be in the now, in this moment. Right? Which, how do I say this? I was going to say which now, but it's not really which now, because there's only the one now. But at what point you are able to focus and activate yourself to that end of the universe moment of now in you depends solely upon your willingness to be open-minded to it happening, really. Okay? So it's like nobody I know willingly wakes up in the morning and says, cool, I'm going to die to my ego today. Because how do you even do that, right? It's a process. And as you know, we're going through the process together, and we're doing this healing, we're doing these lessons, and we're doing meditations and whatever we're doing, prayers, in an attempt to detach ourselves from dependency upon that voice that speaks only for the body. All right. Now, at the point where we detach ourselves completely is the point we rediscover God, because there's no lack. Right? There's no gap or no time waiting between where I let go of my ego and I find God, because as soon as I let go of one, the other is automatically there, because the one has been covering that up all along. Right? Where that happens in you is the same thing as the restaurant at the end of the universe. Right? When am I going to do this? When am I going to let myself be still and know that I am God, in a place where the concept of that and the idea of that come together in the experience of that in my own mind? Because you can keep coming back to Zoom meetings and picking up books and going to meditations until you drop dead again. At some point, there's got to be a recognition, Anna, that death is the only thing waiting at the end of that tunnel. And without an experience of reality, right, I have nothing to realign my journey to. I have nothing to realign my conscious sense of self with, other than an action of faith and an action of witness, which is going to tell me when things are happening in my transformation. Right? It's like, oh, I saw a light around somebody. That relates to my transformation. All of a sudden, you get a little point of reference there. But it's already in the past by the time you recognize it as a point of reference. And you have to let it go to go on to the next step. Right? You've got to let go of that one to go on to the next run. So we're letting go of everything from our past, including our best spiritual experiences, without any expectation of what putting our foot on the next step ought to look like. All right. So it's a leap of faith. It's like, I'm gonna jump off this cliff, and God's gonna catch me. And last time I did it, he caught me in this particular way. and everything worked out fine. But this time I don't want to use that old way, you know, because if I'm counting on something that happened in the past to try and tell me what's going to happen now, then I'm going to not have my mind open enough to the now to appreciate it as it is, because I can only appreciate it as it is as a whole. If I'm holding on to something from the past, I'm not letting it be whole. Get it? So mind training as such isn't about becoming a master of mind training. You kind of have to master it to get it, but it's about becoming a master of letting go of the past, letting go of the future, and living in the moment and allowing everything to be miraculous. And when I put it like that, it sounds much simpler than the whole last 10 minutes of everything. But sometimes you have to go around the bush to get back to the front of it. You know, it's like you don't know you're standing in the shade until you're in the shade, or until you go in the sun. All right, so close your eyes. I know we're supposed to be doing the 20-minute book somewhere here, but anyway, this is the same thing.
And at some point, you got to do an intro. But maybe tomorrow.
What intro do I have to do?
I'm already in the future. And a little bit of the past.
I know.
But what intro? Just a general intro. But we'll talk about it another time. I don't want to.
Wow,
just a general intro for the meeting.
Yeah, we'll talk about it another time.
Right on.
Housekeeping, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, we can do that. I think you can do the intro. Why not? This is your deal. About time you got on your soapbox and stepped up there and shined your light and let people let them throw tomatoes at you for a while.
I'm already bruised and battered, so
right, exactly. A few more won't hurt. Anna will go out picking tomatoes.
Thank you.
It's always the one closest to you that like to throw them best.
So I've experienced.
I know. Well, it's fun. You get to throw tomatoes at your brothers.
Oh God.
Let me be the devil's advocate for a minute.
I thought you loved me.
Yeah, exactly. I know. All right, close your eyes. Ready? Both of you. Anna, eyes closed. Take a few deep breaths, nice and slow. When you listen to my voice, listen to the sounds. Don't listen to the words. Try not to give meaning to the words or meaning to anything. Just hear the sounds as if they're no different from the sounds that you're hearing around you or out in the world or whatever, or the chit-chat going on in your own head if you have any. Just listen to the sounds. Just listen to the verbalization of things. And you'll start to realize, hopefully, you'll start to feel that what you're hearing isn't out there. It's in your mind. It's in your consciousness. You're hearing it in your consciousness. Okay? I'm not outside of you. I'm an idea that you're projecting outside of you, so you can find it easier in this stage to hear what it is you're about. But now what it is we're about is catching up to what we're actually about, and we're doing it and we're putting it into practice where we're listening to what seems to be going on outside as an idea of actually happening in our own mind. Okay. Now, I want you to try and step back in your own mind. Step back from where it is you're processing the words, the sounds and everything, and just try to be in observance. Try to be in a witnessing place to the sounds, to the words, to the voice, whatever you're hearing in there, and just try to step back. And if you can, I did this morning, right, as a little test run for our thing after listening to Alan Watts. If you can, step back far enough, what you'll realize is a sense of rising up. You'll feel like you're going up and back in your own mind, right? up and back. It's as if you're pushing back into your consciousness to try and get away from interacting with it, and rather be the observer. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like push back, go back, step back from the interaction with the sounds and the words, and just try to be the observer of it, and just keep letting yourself go back further away from the sounds and the words as you're attempting to understand them, and just let them be the mumble and the blah, 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 whatever noises. Okay? Just let them be indiscriminate noises without the meaning that you've trained yourself to give them over so many lifetimes. Right? So stepping back, and hopefully you'll begin to get a sense or a feeling of going back and up. Back and up. Now, your mind already knows where it wants to go in this. Okay? Your mind, the Christ mind in you, already knows where it's trying to reach, already knows where it wants to go. It's only your conscious mind that is trying to seek assurances for what's going on, trying to validate everything and quantify everything, which we're telling ourselves now, no, I'm not interested in doing that anymore. It doesn't help me. Okay? So take a few deep breaths and listen. Simply listen without trying to decide what you're listening to or for. Just listen and fall back into a sense of listening, silent listening, and listening into the silence. I'm listening into the silence of my own consciousness. The words are directing the way. The sounds are giving me that emphasis to detach, and I'm pushing back and up into my conscious part of my mind until I get to what will feel like the very edge of the veil, the very edge of the illusion, the very edge of consciousness itself, as far as I can go. And if it helps, try to use our determination when we're reading the 20-minute book, and tell yourself with firm determination, push back, go up. Let go of analysis. Just let the words and the sounds be the emphasis and the push that I need. All right. I'm learning to let go of analysis, let go of the words as I think I understand them, and just let them be sound that I am now detaching from entirely, to go back and up into a sense of silence and into a sense of quiet within myself. And I'm going to repeat some of those last pieces from the course. And you can, if you're still having trouble with the letting go, you can follow along with me for a second. We're going to do, I'm not a body, I am free, I'm still as God created me, which is like, I think in the 350s or something. So I'm going to repeat those like a mantra. And I want you to still push back and away from those. They'll be quite familiar to you. But just let yourself go back and up and get a sense of being determined to detach, determined to step back. Okay? I'm not a body. I'm free. I'm still as God created me. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. Push, focus. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. Push, Anna, harder. I am not a body. More determination. I am free. I am still as God created me. If you're doing this right, you should get that sense of going back and going up, and you should also lose all sense of yourself as the body. All right, breathe and let go, continuing to let go of associating with the sounds. Just let the sounds be things that you are now detaching from and stepping back from in their entirety, as nothing more than sounds and ideas and things in your own mind. I'm stepping back from that. Push. Here I am, Lord, and you go back. back into listening. I'm not a body, I'm free, for I'm still as God created me. Listen, I'm not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. Listen, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. Push, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. God is. God is. God is. Yes, God is. Enter into his presence. God is. God is. Don't listen to my voice. Listen to the sounds. God is. And push back from it. Back into the silence. Deeper into listening. God is. God is. God is. Focus. God is. Back and up. Push back into the mind. Back into the mind. Who is it that is doing this exercise? Who is it that is attempting to listen? Go back into that part of the mind where you are, where you feel yourself to be, deeper and deeper. Push back and detach. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Tell yourself, instruct yourself to let go. God is but love, and therefore so am I. Don't listen to my voice. God is but love, and therefore so am I. Listen into the silence. Reach into the silence, up and back. God is but love, and therefore so am I. God is but love. And therefore so am I. God is. God is. God is. God is. And then we cease to speak. God is, and then we cease to speak. We enter into silent listening. Let go. Let go. Let go. Yes. Focus, Anna. Focus. Push. 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 You have to feel this. Feel yourself going back. Feel yourself going up. And breathe. Let go. Let go. Let go. And try to stay in that place now where you are just listening. Just listening to the inner nothing, the inner silence. Try to focus there. If disturbing thoughts or other thoughts come in, dismiss them and go back to this place. We say God is, and then we cease to speak. God is. God is. Let go of everything else. Try to get a sense of going back and up, 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 up. Let your mind go where it wants to go. Try to feel it as if it's a living thing in there, somewhere, something occurring, letting it go, letting it do what it needs to do, giving it permission to go back and up and to feel that occurring within you. God is. God is. God is. Good. Try to stay there in the silence. Don't listen to my voice. Don't listen to my voice. Let it go. It's just sounds and nothing. Make your way to the place where God is. Feel that in you, a higher place. Good. If interfering thoughts come in, just dismiss them and bring your mind back. God is. Then enter into the silence again. Breathe. All right, cool. That'll do. Just a few minutes of it is enough. If you feel ready, you can open your eyes. Whenever I do an exercise like that, I always have a bit of resistance wanting to come back into the world and play ball again. You get to a point where you just learn to really love being in the silence And the quiet kind of engulfs you. There's a sense of serenity there, and a sense of warmth, and a sense of care, and all of these sorts of things tend to fall into that place of silent listening where there's no need to be thinking about anything else. There's nothing else going on other than that action of listening. And in actuality, there is nothing going on other than that action of listening. The Son is listening to the Father's voice, and the Father is speaking. The Son is listening. And as you push further and further into the veil, it's almost as if it becomes so thin you can hear and sometimes see shapes and things in your consciousness moving beyond it. And of course, as soon as you examine it, it stops. But there are those moments where you just have a little insight into stuff. This morning, I was up at about 4 a.m. and I was listening, and I wanted to write a post about something, and I wrote a post. I thought I haven't put anything on my page for a while. I had a Facebook ban for a day, and then something, and then I started writing this other post. I wrote one, and then that was kind of cool. It came through as Jesus, I think, and I started writing another one. And then I realized it was Ted, like part of the way through. You know, I got this sense that it was Ted. It was like the way that it was coming through was the way he used to teach. And it's like, oh, cool. And I actually just wrote to Annie, you know, about it. And Annie and I had a bit of a laugh. She had a thing with him yesterday in one of her meditations. But sometimes what you hear and you're listening, if you have a reason for listening, if you have something that's bothering you or a situation you can't resolve, you quite often get very good guidance in listening. Well, you always get very good guidance if you ask very specifically, what am I to do in this situation? Who do I see? What do I say? All of these sorts of things. And you'll get guidance that not only you can understand, that is also perfectly clear in the way that you understand it. So sometimes, though, it can seem completely out of context, as if it's like just gibberish or static, or somebody's just mumbling and things like that. But there's always something in it. The hard part about listening is you've always got that corruption going on, where what you think you hear and what you actually hear are quite often two different things. And a lot of the time, if I do get inner guidance, I'll usually sit with it for a few days and just see if there's any clarity around it. It seems to be, I don't know about you guys, like when I look at the idea of Helen, and she dictated the course for all those years, and the writing wouldn't stop, like she just kept hearing Jesus' voice. How the hell that occurred in her, I don't know, because when I hear stuff, it tends to be either just a few words, or I tend to get channeled writing, you know, where you start writing something, and it's almost as if somebody else slips in there into your mind and finishes the writing off for you. Like the Holy Spirit's like, I get where you're wanting to go with this, and gives you the prompts and gives you and sometimes I'll get things that say, no, that's not the right word to use there, and whatever, and it'll be a voice that I recognize. Like usually it's Ted lately, but like when I signed off on the one this morning, I put TP Jr., Ted Poppy Jr., and he always used to sign his stuff THP, Theodore Hector Poppy Jr., and I was going to put the H, and he said, I don't use the H anymore, don't put it in. That's what I heard him say. It was clear as day. And I'm like, all right, I won't put the H in. And I almost wanted to add a little thing, because I knew I had to tag Annie, and I wanted to add a little thing in brackets saying Ted asked me not to use the H. And I understand partly why, but then he told me you don't even need to do that, you know. So, and that was kind of cool because Ted was known as Hector in his teaching days, and the Hector entity, the Hector identity, stirred up a lot of ire and controversy in his time on earth, which Jesus says teachers are not to become controversial. But, you know, sometimes you just can't avoid it. It just, people take you the wrong way and you find yourself talking about transgender or Roe versus Wade. And the next thing you know, you're controversial. It's like, how does that happen? One post and, you know, you go from being someone who's reasonably saintly to a controversial fool, you know, or a, you know, like the holy men in India, the laughing maniacs. They're no good for anything but laughing. So anyway, but you hear these things, and in a listening like that, Anna, did you have any success? No, I didn't think so. So you need to go deeper into your determination. Okay, the place where you're not feeling, right? It's like it's a feel of things, is you're still too much in your head trying to work it out. Okay, rather than fuck that, I just want to feel where I'm going with this. I just want to feel it and try to get a sense of things rather than a definite understanding. You're never going to get a definite understanding. You know, it's like when you hear an echo in the bush, right, or in the forest or something, and you hear an echo from somewhere, and your mind wants to work out where it came from. Did it come from this direction, or did it come from that direction? Did it come from this direction? Did it come from that direction? That's what you're doing, okay? In your mind, you're trying to work it out, right? Whereas when you hear the echo in the bush, you should simply be, oh, I heard an echo, and stop there and let yourself be guided by a feeling of where it came from rather than trying to work it out. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, that's a whole action of mind. That's a letting go of that conceptualization of things. And it's like Vivian with her, you know, how she's a legal secretary or whatever it is she does with her legal. It's all in her head, right? The whole thing is in her head. And so in her thing, I wanted to drop more into her heart space where she feels things and just lets things affect her through feeling and getting a sense of it rather than trying to work it out up here, because up here is always going to give you 1,000 different options to choose from, but the heart always speaks truly. Okay? The heart cannot not speak truly, because that feeling, you can only have one sense of things within yourself at a time. You're either going to feel fearful or you're going to feel loving. You're going to feel certain or you're going to feel uncertain. Okay. When you feel uncertain, you're going to pop back up here into your mind and go, why am I feeling uncertain? You're going to want to analyze that uncertainty. When you're feeling certainty, you just know it. There's nothing to analyze. There's nothing. It's like 2 and 2 equals 4. Of course. I don't even have to think about it. There's no uncertainty. I don't have to go up here and examine 2 plus 2. I don't have to go back and re-examine my education. I just know 2 and 2 is 4. Don't even get into my mind about it. Okay. But when we do this, because it's all new territory, all new ground, what happens is you're starting to feel thing in your heart space, but you're looking for verification of it up here. What am I feeling here? What's this feeling? Am I feeling something? Yeah. Am I feeling anything? Maybe I'm feeling nothing. But the nothing that you think you're feeling is still something. You're feeling nothing. Okay? That's still a good thing. It's only your ego trying to work out what you think feeling should look like. Right? I'm telling myself I'm feeling nothing, or I'm not getting this, or whatever it is. It's like, well, you are, but you're allowing the feedback of that to be to come from a very undependable source, right? And the decision to flip from your heart to your mind happens in the blink of an eye. Like it's just, you know, you'll have 1,000 references. It's like when you're driving your car, You can drive it and your mind makes 50 judgments every second about don't hit that lamppost, watch out for those people. You don't even have to think about it. It just does it automatically. All right. That's what you've trained your mind to do, is to automatically look for justification and verification amongst the thoughts that actually don't mean anything. Right. We're learning to reach out with our feelings, and we're learning to drop into our feelings. I don't really know how to talk about that part of it, but it's like, when you go out in nature and you see a big waterfall or you see something, and it's like, wow, this feels amazing. You can feel, you've got to put the word amazing to it to qualify it, but you feel good, right? You feel it. You feel it. You don't sit there and go, is this amazing? Have I been in a more amazing environment than this? This is pretty amazing. And look for references about what amazing is. You don't do that. You're just like, you're amazed. It's just like, wow, right? That's the same with this. So heart and mind makes the decision to listen, right? And become still. So you can drop back into feeling something that is going on within you all the time, right? You feel the call to awaken, just as in the same way that you feel uneasy, right? When your ego associates that call with anxiety or with physical things, right? My mind's telling me that I feel anxious, but my heart, if I let my heart speak, my heart's going to tell me there's nothing to fear, and to just simply allow this feeling to be there and to sit with it, because the heart knows that everything is just love, right? And I'm talking about it as higher order, lower reality here, but it doesn't really matter how you frame it in your own awareness, okay? So you have this part of you that wants to justify everything and put it into a box, and am I doing this right? And is this what feeling it should be? And then the other part of you that just gets on with the job, okay? You're learning at the place where you're at, you're learning just to get on with the job, okay? But because the course especially is so heavy with verbiage and words and concepts and stuff, it becomes difficult for a second when you're in that to actually detach from it, which is why when you do those workbook lessons, it takes you from that into that heart space at the end, where you finally get to just sit there quietly listening and you reach that, right? So don't worry about it. It's just like, that's where you're at in this thing. And more practice pays off. Okay. Jesus says it wouldn't advantage you more if you thought that nothing happened. It's like you're always, something's happening. Even the fact that you're attempting these lessons and these exercises means that there's something occurring in you that the other 9,998 people isn't occurring in. 2 in 10,000 are going to hear this. There you are, the 2 in 10,000, Anna and Tina. Right? And it's like each of you has got a foot on the ladder here or a foot on the ladder there, but it's the same ladder, but you actually have to put your foot on every step. It may not be a sequential ladder. You may have to go down to put your foot on the step below before you can go back up and put your step there. And then you may have to come down again and go up again. Like it's this whole thing. But eventually, as you give purpose to all your relationships and everything, all those things line up and you find that you're able to just go up, 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 up. Okay. But sometimes it seems like, oh man, this again, I thought I was past this. Right. I've been doing this course for a couple of years and I thought I was past the need to look at all this shit. Right. And it still shows up. And you're wondering, well, how can this still be showing up for me? I've had such great experiences of other things. It's like, yeah, well, sometimes you have like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. This piece fits there and that piece fits there. And then you got to take those pieces out and, rearrange the pieces and get the picture right. It's like having a piece of the picture isn't the whole picture, but it gives you an idea of what the picture's going to be. That's probably a terrible analogy. I can see Tina's face looking very confused there. So, you guys ever have that, what's that game, Jenga, where you pull the blocks out? Right? It's a bit like Jenga. Sometimes you start pulling the block out and you're like, oh, no, I don't think I should put that, and you push it back in there. You know, and I'll take this one out first. And it seems like you got to go up and down the tower a bit until you finally, which one's going to allow you to do what, you know? So transformation's a lot like Jenga. We used to have a game called Kerplunk, where you'd have this plastic tube full of thousands of little holes, right, all through this plastic tube. You'd have all these like chopstick things, really skinny little plastic chopsticks, all different colors, and you'd thread them through. It would take you like an hour. Half of the game would be to put these chopsticks through the tube, and then you have one ball, right? One ball, and you put it on the top of all the chopsticks. They all meet in the middle like that, and the ball sits there, and you have to pull out each stick. And the one who makes the ball fall through is the loser. It's a two-person game or whatever, you know. You lose, a bit like Jenga, but, you know. And you want to pull that stick out and you think you got the skills, but nah, you got to put it back in and you got to go for an easier one down below where you know it's not going to fall, you know. So when you're reading this course, it's like, oh, yeah, I get it. But the place where you're telling yourself you get it may not yet be lining up with the skills you've got to pull that stick. Does that make sense? You know, when teenagers say, yeah, I know, I get it. Yeah, but they don't really, you know, they don't really get it. They're just going to go out and get pregnant or do whatever they do. And it's like, you know, it doesn't matter how many times you tell them. Same thing. So it's a bit like that when you're doing this and you're attempting those moments of listening. I'm slipping down in my chair here, and you're attempting those moments of listening and being quiet. It's good that you're attempting them. You may not yet be at the place where you've mastered your mind training enough to actually attempt it successfully, but just the fact that you're even attempting it is giving you a bit of an insight into where it's headed. Okay, because where it's headed in the ultimate or the final place where you come to the end of the dream is to be still and know that I am God. That's it. Be still and know that I am God. That's within you. Right? It's my job simply, if you'll let me, to bring you to that place. Right? Now, that place is going to be any moment, including this moment. Right? Very simply, by when I say to you, how bad do you want to know God? How bad do you want to remember your Father who loves you unconditionally? How determined are you to draw that circle in the sand and just sit there and go through whatever's required in order to bring about the shift in consciousness that, you know, accelerates you to that experience. And you get to see how, not how willing you are, but you get to see it through the eyes of how unwilling you are. All right? That's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just where you're at, right? It's just, oh, I see, that's where my foot's at on the ladder. I've still got a shitload more rungs to go than I thought I did. But your mind training keeps gentle pace with you, right? In your willingness to embark upon greater and greater efforts and greater experiments and leaps of faith and all these things with your own process, the more you're able to put your feet on the ladder and the stronger and more competent you feel about things, right? So it's like one of the greatest things that in that regard is to get out of your comfort zone, right? Now, Tina, you just got out of your comfort zone and you went into the country and met a whole bunch of fairies and had a whole bunch of other things, right, that you weren't expecting, you wouldn't have thought you would expect, and you didn't know what to do with it really in your own mind. You made a decision you didn't want to judge it, right? Now, all of that in itself is one thing, but what it's doing is expanding your mind and allowing your mind to stay open to greater possibilities and potentials of things contained in the unknown rather than the known of the comfort zone. Okay, same thing, Anna. All right, pack a bag, bug off out of the country or down to somewhere else in the country for a month. Take a month off and just go do something and let other things that are not in your control be orchestrated so that when you come back, you'll see where you're actually at with stuff. right? The last thing you want to be doing is sitting in Zoom meetings forever. The last thing, seriously, I mean that. Not that I don't love to see you, but, you know, it's not the you that I'm seeing, if you get what I mean. My brother in Christ. So it's an amazing thing that happens when you step out of somewhere and it's out of your control. Like Thelma and Louise. You know, it's like, what the fuck? What can happen? Except we're not going to go rob banks and drive over cliffs. We're just going to go and trust that God goes with us, and whatever happens is perfect for our undoing, is perfect for our healing, for our transformation. Right? We're going to trust that process totally, even if it looks like fairies. Or people dressed up as fairies or whatever. Did you wear a costume too? Did they give you something to wear? Oh, you did? Did you get photos?
I did everything. Good. No, I got late. I get there late, but the woman I stayed with she had costumes. It was just amazing. So yeah, I just put a little something on it to, to go to the campfire.
Are they like LARPers?
What are LARPers?
LARPers, LARPERS, people that dress up as and they have foam swords or magic wands. And,
no, they just
cosplay.
No. It was like a little bit of fairiness, like wings, maybe, and little tutus, and there were guys there too. It was amazing. I mean, it was so cool, so much fun.
I would have been there.
It was everything.
You can't have fairies without a garden gnome. so I've been called.
Yep. When you do the little shave. I've got receipts. I've got photos.
I have to do a shave?
When you did it. No, you've already been the gnome, and I have receipts.
Oh.
I have the photos. And you're just like this.
I got called Santa the other day by this little girl that came into my store.
Aww.
I know. I had a beanie on. I think it was my yellow beanie or something. And she looked at me and she grabbed her mother, and they were laughing and giggling and talking or whatever like that. And her mother said, she thinks you're Santa Claus. So what do? I let her leave the shop thinking that I was Santa Claus. Don't want to break those illusions, but they're too young. So what's going on with you, Anna? Let's split the beans. Is that the saying? Split the beans?
I never heard that. You, Anna? Yeah.
Shoot the breeze, not split the beans. It's shoot the breeze. I've heard that one, but I don't know.
That one, that one, but split beans.
Yeah, I've heard that. Not split the beans.
But let's make it a thing.
All right. That'll be the title for this Zoom, be split the beans.
There it is.
There's always something.
Yeah. So I'm just going through a lot of body stuff lately. Everything hurts. I'm not sleeping well. I actually just took a quick nap right before this meeting, and I couldn't sleep the whole time because I felt like I had like restless leg syndrome or something going on, like vibration.
Oh yeah, that's terrible. I hate that.
Yeah, I'm sick of that shit.
Restless legs.
Yeah. And then
body
the other
stuff. Yep. Go on.
The other night I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I haven't had where my mind is just empty, which was nice, but I was also still annoyed because I just wanted to go back to sleep. So I just sat there with an empty, open mind. And it's like,
Good.
I felt like I couldn't really do anything with it. Like I couldn't even.
You can't.
Maybe it's because I was analyzing it. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
You're about what you can do with it, but you can't do it. I've had that happen many, many times where you just wake up and there's nothing.
Nothing.
Literally nothing in your mind. It's like, that's a good thing. Right? Don't try to do anything with it. ask instead, like, what would you have me do? Okay. So talk to Jesus. It's like, oh, thanks. You know, I always give thanks, but it's like, wow, thanks for this quiet thing. What would you have me do with this silence? Most of the time there's nothing, but sometimes like that energy can be put to good use, because it is energy, and it tends to, if you sit in it and really focus with it, like we were just doing before, it tends to open up into kind of like this portal kind of place in your mind where you can enter into that and have an experience. All right. So, but first you've got to become not afraid of it. Right. I remember the very, very first time that I had my mind completely emptied out and there was nothing. I couldn't find a single thought. I was just pure awareness. I couldn't find thoughts about anything. I was just me in my mind. It was silent. It was kind of scary. Right. And it took me, if it wasn't for the fact that I had all the brothers around and Course in Miracles and everything else, it took me for a minute to actually accept the fact that, oh, hang on a minute, I'm in a process of perfecting a state of inner peace, and this must be part of it. Like I had to identify it and recognize that this state of peacefulness and this nothing in my mind was perfect, right? Even though there was kind of discomfort about like, what the fuck, what's going on? It's like, where's all my thoughts? Where's all my stuff? All my hard-earned memories and grievances and past, and it was gone.
Yeah.
And it was about 3 or 4 days later that it started to creep back in. And I'm like, oh, damn, I've been so peaceful for a few days. And my ego sort of like filled up the space again eventually, but at least it showed me what was possible. You know, it showed me what was possible with the mind training. That experience that happened to me, same as like with you, it was a given experience. It wasn't something that I worked at and got into. It was like it was part of a result of my collaboration with the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit gave me, this is how I see it anyway, gave me that experience to show me what the goal of our mind training is, right? Which is perfect inner peace. And now when I'm not talking, that's exactly the state my mind is in. There's nothing. It's just tumbleweeds in here. You see something, tumbleweed goes past. Silent, another tumbleweed. Sometimes I examine the tumbleweeds. It's like, oh, look, there's a tumbleweed. It's gone again. I know. Incredible things, tumbleweeds. What the hell? Don't they have roots in the dirt and they grow? They're just weeds in a ball. Like
I don't think so.
Mars.
They're so cool. They just like...
They found a... I know. They're just a bunch of weed. Have you ever seen them?
Yeah. I live in Texas and New Mexico.
Yeah, I've seen them.
You have them in Florida?
No.
Oh,
I lived in Arizona as a kid.
Yeah, I lived in the desert too. So I'm in New Mexico. So yeah,
I think you guys need to go and get some of those tumbleweeds. I think they would sell. They would sell well at the markets. People would use them in their landscape designs. You know.
Oh, we kind of need it in California.
Genuine tumbleweed. $50.
$50.
Did you see the thing they found on Mars? It's like a pile of weeds all bundled up. It looks like a tumble, but then it also could be a ball of string. It's like you don't know what it is, and they don't know what it is. They're trying to say it's part of a thermal blanket, the netting off a thermal blanket. It's like, I'm looking at this thing, I zoomed right in, I'm like, that's not even netting. That's like a tumbleweed. It's like this stringy looking thing, you know.
They're in New Mexico. Lies.
Yeah, right. They're not actually on Mars. They're in New Mexico, and they're like, somebody saw it on the camera. Now we got to include that in.
Like the Truman Show.
Right, exactly. There is no Mars. We just, if you get a telescope, you can probably see them out there making it.
Camera crew.
Yeah, all of that. I have chocolate on my belly. Must have dribbled a bit. So anyway, It is a stupid cup. Who the hell makes a cup like that? You can't get your nose in to have a big.
Makes you dribble.
It makes you dribble. It's like a cup that you need a long straw with or something.
Or you need a set. You need a set of them.
There is a set of them. I only bought the one. There's a whole collection to collect, a whole bunch to collect.
Sweet. They're useless.
Yeah, completely useless, like everything else in time and space. Well, now what was I going to say then? You were talking about quiet place in the mind. What was the thing you said after that, Anna? It's talking about getting out.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. Anyway, that's done. Has anyone spoken to Anthea? Did she go and catch up with Gemma?
I saw her yesterday. I don't know if she has yet. No, she hasn't yet. Maybe she did today. I don't know.
I'm hoping that we see them together tomorrow on the Zoom. Like
I was gonna say, it's happening now though, so I wouldn't have I saw her.
Yeah.
Yesterday, so
it's happening now.
Exciting.
Yeah. It is trying to get everybody out of their comfort zone. That's why Jesus sent the disciples out, both to teach the message and so they could see they were capable of it without having to be around him all the time. Did you get to teach anything to the fairies or offer them any?
Yes, I had so many. I had so many holy encounters. I had one really cool one. I ended up being, Netta Bowen was there. You know Netta? She's a singer. She does chorus stuff. My friend was kind of organizing her thing, so I got to. So that's what the fairies were at my place where I was staying. So that's why I spent a lot of time with them. In the daytime, I went to the little Netta thing, and I had so many holy encounters there. It was crazy. I ended up being the greeter for some reason. I just met I didn't know anybody because I only knew these people from Zoom. So there was all this anxiety about y'all might like me on Zoom. I don't know if you like me in person. So this was all this but the prompts were so strong and everything kept lining up because I was like, I don't know if I would choose, I would come back home and get back into my bubble. But if I'm gonna do it, then I'm gonna do it. It was like miracle after miracle and just push after push. I told you everybody started falling from COVID. Before my flight, before I got my dad just arranged my flight for me. It was really miraculous. I wasn't gonna go. And then the day before, all my plans fell away. I had no place to stay, no way to get there, aside from the plane, because everybody started falling from COVID. And then my parents would listen to CNN all day long. So I don't even know about COVID, but my parents would listen to that all day long. They were talking about monkeypox. And I thought I started to get a little rash. So I thought I had monkeypox. And I knew I didn't. Because I was like, I already healed that. But on the plane there, and again, I don't know where I'm going to go, where I'm going to stay. On the plane there, Dr. Fauci's partner was sitting right behind me. And the whole flight, he was just talking about the vaccinations and which one. And I was like, you still trying to come for me? I already healed this. But it was that crazy kind of stuff going on. But I ended up being the greeter at this little event. And there was this really cool guy. I had my Afro puffs and my door knocker earrings. And this guy, he ended up having a Kango hat and a blue face Rolex. So we totally were together. And we just had all these little holy encounters. At one point he asked me about, Netta was singing Remember You're Dreaming. And he was like, what does that even mean? Because he had a little bit of an introduction to the chorus. So I started kind of talking to him and I said, well, if I can use a biblical reference. He was like, no, don't use a biblical reference. And I was like, okay, what am I going to say? And he was from Philadelphia. So I just remembered how I explained how things sort of happened for me. I felt all of a sudden I got the con, like a shell game. I felt no matter where I went, there was never a ball there. So it was I'm out of the game. So I was telling him that because he actually lived in Philadelphia. And I was like, remember when you get on a bus in Philadelphia and there's already this shell game happening and you're watching the shell game and you know where the ball is. And every time the other person picks it up, the ball is there. So you go, I think I'll get in this game. And so we had this conversation about And then once you get in the game, they say to you, you got to put your money down. Like you can't just be an observer. You got to invest in it.
Yeah.
And once you invest in it, that's when the con happens. And then all of a sudden, everybody that was involved in the game, after they take your money, they get off. And then you go, wait a minute, I was just in a hustle. And I was like, that's kind of like what this world is like. Like you are born into this hustle. And at some point, you go, wait a minute, this is a con. So anyway, we had like really beautiful time, he and I, and there were other people that had seen me on other Zoom meetings, not even course meetings, but like Paul Hederman's group, they happened to be there. And I was like, don't I know you? I don't know. And another lady that I met earlier in the day, didn't really meet her. I just caught her eye and we just smiled at each other. And then she ended up, she's like, don't I know you from somewhere? It's like, I don't know. She's earlier at the, anyway, it was one thing after another like that. Really beautiful. And then fairies at night, campfire at night.
That was cool.
It was crazy.
That's what happens. You get out of your zone and stuff happens.
Yeah.
You'll probably find, like this is always a thing, you'll probably find that later on down the track, all of those things will have a greater relevance somewhere in your own thing, in your own transformation.
Yeah. Well, it felt like I said, I couldn't really do anything. There was a bathroom thing that happened, which made me remember some other stuff that was going on in my dad's house. So when I look at it, and I can make a story up about anything, but my dad had the same amount of land and property, but it was really open space and just pristine and kind of quiet. But there were all of these triggers that were happening. So there was all this, I felt like purification in my mind. Like it was like trigger, forgiveness, miracle, trigger, forgiveness, miracle, over and over and over, like constant. And then when I got to the lady's house, it was like all of this just stuff, like beautiful stuff. Like, I don't know, it just kind of felt really kind of like cool, like this openness to heal. And then this application of everything. Like now it's time to apply, because even the trip there, like I didn't know how I was going to get there, and I never taken Uber. So I just picked an Uber driver, and he told me that he wasn't going to take any jobs, but he just was like, I'll take one more. And he saw my name was Tina. He said, I had an ex-girlfriend named Tina. And I was thinking, maybe this is Tina. And so he picked me up, and it was like an hour-long ride. And about 5 minutes in, he just starts talking about how the last time he had made that drive, it was this woman, and she was a Christian or something. And he goes, and she's my sister in Christ. And he says, because I'm a Pentecostal or something like that. So I said, so that means you're ecstatic for God? He's like, yeah. And I was like, cool, because I'm ecstatic for the truth. So the whole time there, we were just like talking about God and praising God. And at the end of the trip, we like hugged each other. He's like, I love you, sister. I was like, I love you, brother. And it was all of those little things that, like I said, I couldn't have. But yeah, it just felt like, yeah, and it will have more stuff later. But what you said a second ago is I'm sorry, just this last thing.
Go on,
what you said a second ago about being present and like letting that go, like that happened. It was beautiful. It was amazing. And I had a sort of a realization when I got home and I read lesson 135 about not planning, organizing, just being totally available, totally defenseless, and just letting spirit like just convince you that spirit has got you. And I had the realization that this is not the first time that I've had this convincing. And my prayer is often, I'm willing to be convinced. And it's like spirit keeps convincing me. And then I totally forget. I'm like, I'm willing to be convinced. I get convinced. And then I'm like, I'm willing to be convinced. But what you said about not holding on to that experience, because I kind of would like to want to remember this, but what I want to really remember is that I'm always cool. Like spirit's always got me, and I'm open to like however it's gonna look the next time, however it's gonna look. So that really hit me. So that's all I want to say.
And the next time is now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Being able to enter into this moment, into this. Like that, and allow that to be exactly as it's meant to be. You got to let go. You got to get out of your comfort zone. Anna, you got to get out of your comfort zone. It's like you've got to make a decision there, whatever that's going to look like. I don't know. But you have to remember that your comfort zone is set up to keep exclusivity alive. Your comfort zone is specifically orchestrated by you to exclude. Okay? This is my house. These are my things. This is my walls, my possessions, my blah, blah, blah. Not yours, right? All your friends, your family, and everything, all generally, until the shit hits the fan, but all tend to lean towards witnessing to the fact that the dream you think you have about yourself as being someone who owns things or does things or whatever is true to you, right? None of it is true to you, right? Everyone is your family, and everywhere you go is your brother in Christ. But because the mind that likes the comfort zone, like familiarity breeds contempt, it breeds so much contempt. You don't even know how much contempt you have for yourself, right? It's this kind of thing. What do you mean I have contempt for myself? And it's like, you're not going to find out what that means until you get out there and have fairy people bloody like twinkling magic spells over you, and you're going to realize what you're missing, right? You're going to realize what life, incredible, amazing things can happen. But instead, I'm sitting here watching fucking soap opera. It's like when Jesus said, I come to give you life and life more fully. It's like he didn't mean sit there, turn on the television and have an incredible experience of somebody else's life. He meant actually have your own life. Now, you can't do that if you're still intent on building defenses, and that's what comfort zones are, right? Now, you may get out there and the experience of people twinkling fairy dust in your hair and whatever is too much, and you may want to return to the comfort zone rather than go forward to people doing whatever and the next group of crazy people and whatever. But it's like literally there are no crazy people. There's only ideas I have about what I think crazy is, which are always going to be wrong. There's no crazy here. The whole thing in its entirety is crazy. And I try to split it up into crazy and not crazy by developing a comfort zone for myself that I tell myself represents not being crazy. All those people over there, they're crazy. But in my house where everything's under my control, that's not crazy. That's all cool. I got it. It's like, no, you don't. All you're doing is defending yourself against life. You have to take these moments, and as you take these moments to step out and experience other things, it's like you realize that it's not that your comfort zone becomes redundant, but it starts to lose the meaning that you've given it as being a place of solitude or fortitude or whatever like that. And it just becomes just one with everything else as well, right? It's like, oh, I thought I had to live in my house and I couldn't go out my front door because I felt safe. And now I've had a few experiences of going out of my comfort zone, and I no longer feel like I have to return to my house to have that safety. Obviously you're still going to return there to sleep and cook and do whatever, but it loses that sense of being a place of defensiveness against the rest of the world, because you're starting to let the rest of the world back in. But because familiarity breeds contempt, you can quite easily convince yourself that you're okay in your comfort zone. I'm okay. I'm all good. Don't worry about me. I got everything I need. It's like, no, you're existing. You're not living. You're existing. It's like, and there's a big difference between existing and living. It's like my thing here, I have the same exact thing. So we've got this thing called Mushroom Valley coming up, and I'm going to go. It's a thing for young people in their 20s, and everybody dances like this, and like there's fairies and whatever, and they have DJs that go all night, and I'm sure everybody takes exotic, I don't even know what they take these days, but something to make you feel like wow, which I don't need because I feel like wow all the time. But anyway, but I'm going to go, like there was an invitation to go and help set up for it, and on the day that we were going to go, my friend and I bucketed down rain, so we didn't end up going, but we're going to go and dance with the hippies and do all of that sort of thing, which used to be part of my old background anyway, but there's there's a thing in my mind that goes, oh, I'm done with that. That's from when I was younger and whatever and whatever. But I always remember my friend Stan, brother Stan, who every Saturday night we would have Vespers, right? So at the Healing Center, every Saturday I'd have Vespers, which would go till about 7:30. And it was usually a video, some popcorn, whatever. And we'd just like have fun, watch a transformational video or something. And Stan would always go up to the pub, the big pub in town, the big bar, and they would have live music there. And there'd be like a little dance area in an open beer garden sort of courtyard. It was all open, you know, and plants and everything around. And Stan would be the guy people would go to see. He'd be dancing. He'd be spirit dancing in the middle of this thing. There'd be like, I call it white people dance. You're probably going to laugh at that, Tina, but white people dance, like white people have no rhythm, really. You know, like it's a well-known thing. But white people sort of dance like this, right? So white people dance like this, and as if there's something, you know, like da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm a bit different. I've got a bit more of a different thing I do, like, but I know, right? But Stan was like, he'd be feeling it, and he'd let the music take him, and he would look like, you know, those inflatable advertising men that like those big long skinny things with the wavy arms. He was like that, but it was his natural thing. He would just tap in, and I would often go up to the thing with him, and I would sit there and watch him dance, thinking, man, I wish I was that free. I could just fucking do that, you know, get on the dance floor and just feel that free to just let myself go in front of like 300 people at the pub and whatever. And nowadays I do, of course, but I don't give a shit. You know, we had a thing here the other night, and there was about 7 or 8 of us here, and we had a fire or whatever, and I'm doing the wavy man, like just feeling it and just going with it and having moments, you know, like having those moments. And one of my other friends, he won't dance if you put a rocket under his ass. He won't get up and dance. He's just like this, you know, and he's like watching. I haven't heard from him since, actually. He's watching me do the wavy man, which is now what it shall be known as from this point on, the wavy man thing. And yeah, I know. But you got to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to allow your buttons to be pushed. You've got to allow yourself to encounter those fearful places, right? You've got to allow the world in. You've got to say, okay, I'm going to open my door. I'm going to invite the whole universe in with all its everything and deal with it as it comes. But to do that, you got to be willing to drop the defenses, get out of the comfort zone and just say yes to stuff. So, Anna, that's going to be your assignment. Tina's just had her assignment and she fulfilled it perfectly. And Anthea, I gave her the assignment to go and spend some time with Gemma, which apparently that's happening now, and we'll see what happens. I gave her the assignment to go to the pub, right? This is a much simpler one, right? This is an exact perfect example of how a lesson comes around again. And each time it comes around, it gets a bit more intense, right? So her first, and I guarantee it will be exactly the same confrontation. The first thing that I offered her as a way of having an entering in to a new thing, right, was to just simply go to the pub by herself, go to the pub, sit at the bar and order a drink. That was it, right? And in the saying yes of just that and just doing it as it was asked, something else can happen, right? Because she's giving up the idea of doing things on her own terms. But however, in that particular example, she took a sister, I think she said, with her, and they went to the pub and nothing really happened. They had an interesting night at the pub, right? I know full well, right, in my own being, I know it without any shadow of a doubt, had she gone to the pub by herself, she would have met somebody at the bar, they would have got to drinking and became friends, and some whole other thing would have ensued after that, and a greater thing occurring because of it, right? As it was, she tried to control it, and nothing new can happen when you try to control something, right? So now we'll see what happens. I told her when The last time I spoke to her, I said, when you go and visit Gemma, you're only allowed to take the clothes that you're wearing. You're not allowed to take anything else. Everything else has to be miraculous, right? Which is how guys used to travel from Wisconsin when they would come to Australia, and vice versa, right? They would get on the plane, not all the time, but you would have guys that would come over that were like extreme disciples, and they just get on the plane with what they're wearing, and they come to Australia with no clue what they were going to wear when they got here, extra clothes, nothing, and just allow it all to be miraculous, right? So when Jesus says, just take one robe and follow me, you know, bring one robe and follow me, it's like, that's the whole thing that I've presented to Anthea now, right? Take one set of clothes, go and see Gemma and hang out with Gemma for a bit, right? I didn't tell her what a bit looks like, how long she had to be there, what she had to do, nothing like that, right? But it's just to allow for a moment of miracle mindedness so you can even begin to appreciate what that looks like in your own thing. You know? You've got to be able to start to see it, right? So same thing, Anna, right? Now, this isn't going to happen for a week or two for you. I can see that. So, but something's going to happen. So next week, I'm going to give you an assignment, and you can do it or don't do it. You can take it or don't take it, right? It'll be up to you. But your own healing, your own thing, literally nothing could be asked of you, even if it looks like it's me trying to orchestrate something now. That's still the activity of God, right? God is either everything or not everything, right? That's where you get to with this. You could sit there and go, oh, that's just Dave saying stuff. And it's like, is it? Is it really just Dave saying stuff? Or am I actually in this meeting because I'm attempting to avail myself of some kind of higher perception of myself and the world? You know? What did you think it was going to look like when you turned on your computer and sat down this morning? Did you have an idea what you thought this meeting should look like or shouldn't look like? What I'm allowed to tell you and not tell you, or what I should ask you or not ask you? You're not going to get any other spiritual teachers come along and tell you, just take one set of clothes and go visit somebody. Get out of your comfort zone. Go do this, go there, do that. Only the Holy Spirit tells you that. Are you going to let me say that? Right, the Spirit of love speaking. Yay. Anyway. All right, have we got any other business? Do we have a thing? Like last week, I literally had nothing. I told you the news, Tina. I've got a few messages back from Annie about that news, actually, which I haven't listened to yet. I started to listen and then I realized it was 11 o'clock. So I'll be interested to see if she collaborates with what I heard and what she's heard. So, I know.
I'm interested.
There's always someone that collaborates it. There's always.
Wow.
It's shared, you know, like healing is shared, and it's always for healing. So.
Oh, I'm interested. I actually had a little something. Oh, no. Let's be quiet. Let's be quiet.
Go on. Something.
No, you just were saying the collaboration. I just made me think about something else a little bit miraculous that sort of happened with two things, actually. The fact that you didn't have anything to say last week really pissed me off. Really pissed me off. And that sort of prompted, like, really, like, that was one of the things that really prompted me, like, I'm done. Like, it was disproportionate. I was like, he had lots to say when I wasn't here. And I was, you know what I mean? So it was like this whole, like, that whole confrontation. But it was, I don't know if you ever heard about Muji Baba and his thing with Papaji, how it was something that Papaji said, and it was like nothing, but it was disproportionate, his anger. My anger was disproportionate, and I had nowhere to go with that because I knew that it's never outside of me. But oh my God, it really feels like if things were different, then I would be happy or whatever. But I had and I couldn't sleep for like no sleep, crying, really frustrated. And I was like, the only way I'm going to feel better is if I quit everything. All of these groups, all these people hate me anyway. All the groups, they don't appreciate me. The fairies love me. I should just go back. I need a little bit of duality with the fairies. And that's really how it's feeling. Like, they love me, but so that was really, I'm just looking at that just now. And it was like, all of these things, it just needed to happen last week for like that little bit, because it felt like a huge heart opening, but that thing needed to happen to like crack something. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yep.
Yeah. 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 There was something else, but I don't, it's kind of like going backwards. I don't think I need to say that part. Yeah.
All right. What version of the book do you have?
I have two versions. I have FIP and COA.
Grab your FIP. Grab your FIP. Oh, in the binder.
Used to be teachers of nature.
Look it up. Look it up. The Fear of Redemption. It's in the text. You don't have to do it right now, but
okay, cool.
It's page like 756 or something. But the Fear of Redemption, and I want you to read it, the first paragraph, over and over and over. This is your homework. I want you to read it at least 6 times.
All right. There's no 756. I'll look it up.
All right, whatever it is. 76 something, maybe. I don't know. It's towards the end. Fear of Redemption. Anna, I'm going to sit with your homework until next week, or maybe even until tomorrow if you're in the other meeting, but sometimes you are, I know. I don't think I've got anything else. Let's just
don't make me mad.
Hey?
Don't make me mad.
Don't piss the girl off.
Give me more.
Right, exactly. The kookaburras are laughing at you.
Well, they should.
Can you hear them laughing?
I heard them earlier.
They're so loud. How can you not hear that? What's going on out there? He started laughing at me again. They're very talkative kookaburras. If you talk to them, they'll often give you a little.
I heard them earlier.
Yeah.
I think.
You can hear them. They're like. They're quiet now.
Yeah. Zoom does a good job of locking stuff out.
I think it's kind of directional. The sound comes from the side, you know, like. All right, breathe. Anna, focus. Focus, like deep, push, go right into it, into a sense of feeling something. Try to get out of your head and feel in the same way that you feel upset and disappointment and loss and grief and all of those sorts of feelings. I want you to feel into something, but without defining it as anything like that. Okay? Just so you kind of know what a feeling is, right? We tend to dissociate with everything here. So I just want to feel and be open to feeling whatever comes, to be open to allowing in whatever it is that is truly being presented to me in this moment, which can only ever really be the unconditional love of God, since that's what everything is. All right, so take a few breaths. I want you to feel that love. Right? Oh, that's what I wanted to do. That was the thing. So happiness is a choice. All right. Happiness is a choice. I had this thing during the week, and luckily I remembered it. Thank you, Jesus. But I remembered it now. And I was sitting in my car. Anyway, there was a background, but anyway, I was sitting somewhere and thinking about happiness is a choice. And I remember saying to myself, well, because like the goal of the course is inner peace, right? And my perspective on inner peace, having now attained this sort of state of peace that I equate with peace in my own mind, is peace is great, but happiness is a choice. And it's like, well, I'm happy that I'm peaceful, but is that the kind of happiness Jesus is talking about? And it's like I'm looking at the idea of having life more fully. So I made a decision. I want to be happy, right? In my peaceful state, I want to be happy, and see if that opened up to anything else, right? So I want to be happy. I want to be happy. And I had to repeat it to myself about 5 or 6 times before I actually started to connect with that thought, right? It seemed to be quite superficial in intention, or quite superficial in the way that I was choosing for it. And then it's like, no, I want to be happy. And I tried to hear myself. I tried to feel myself what I was saying, right? Until I did. And then in that moment, I just burst into laughter and happiness. And like, it was just, there was a moment, there was a whole thing that happened. And it's like, all right, I'm just continually choosing to be happy. And you get to the point where happiness is your own state, or peace is your own state. And there's nothing else you want. It's like happiness only exists in the place where I have something to oppose it with, being not happy, right? Finally, when I'm just happy, I don't necessarily realize that I'm happy, because it becomes my state, and I'm not looking at it as something that makes me feel a certain way based on something that doesn't. Can you hear that? All right. So there's no longer the springboard for happiness there, because the springboard was misery and sadness and all of those sort of stuff, which is why I wanted to choose to be happy in the first place, to the point where I've chosen to be happy totally, that the springboard no longer exists. Happiness is now my standard state of mind, right? There's no longer any necessity for a request to be happy. I just am that. In my own awareness of myself, I'm just happy all the time, right? It's no longer different from any other state. It's like it's a singular thing. Oh, I'm happy. What does that look like? Well, I'm not laughing like a maniac all the time, and I'm not walking around with this kind of maniacal grin on my face or anything like that. I'm happy within. I'm happy inside. I'm just happy and like fulfilled, and all of those things that go along with what happiness brings you, that sense of fulfillment and protection and like all of that, you know. So I thought we could do that in our Zoom. So Anna especially, okay, I want you to intentionalize the decision for making happiness, right? Now, I know the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We're not looking for good intentions. We're just looking for intention, right? I want to put some intention into my decision. I want to put some power. That might be a better word. I want to put some power into my decision. When I say I want to be happy, I want to feel that I mean it. Okay? I want to feel that I'm actually being honest and true when I say I want to be happy. Because it's easy to say these words on the surface and not really feel them. And it's like that attempt at feeling, that attempt at getting a positive result out of putting that determination into being happy, it'll give you that sense of what that feels like. Can you hear that? You won't have to be up here examining it, whether you're happy or not, because as soon as you ask yourself if you're happy, you're no longer happy. You're in the examination of something that exists only as potential. I'm potentially happy in my questioning, but I'm not actually happy. Happiness is always seems to be just a bit out there, just a bit at arm's length, you know, and I have to choose for it again and again. No, I choose to be happy now. I choose for happiness. I choose to be happy, right? Now, I want you to sit there for a second and make that decision for yourself and put all the power of your heart and mind and soul into that decision, because you're worth it, right? You're not guilty. You're not to blame. You're not any of that stuff. You're a child of God. Okay? You are a child of God. You are loved and loving, and that is how you should think of yourself in your heart. That is how you should think of yourself. I am loved and loving, and fuck it, I choose to be happy. God damn this world, stupid freaking world, trying to convince me that I'm guilty or that I'm not worthy or that I'm not as good as others or blah, blah, whatever it is, whatever story you want to concoct. None of those stories have the power to obliterate your happiness unless you let them. All right? Now, make the choice. I choose to be happy. Let me hear you say it. Right, speak it out. I choose to be happy.
I choose to be happy.
Right, again.
I choose to be happy.
Again.
I choose to be happy.
Now get out of your head and say it again.
I choose to be happy.
Keep going. You got to hear yourself say it.
I choose to be happy.
And
I choose to be
again.
happy. I choose to be happy.
You heard it. How many times was that? That was like 5 times until you heard it, right? In the moment you connect with saying it and feeling it, heart and mind come together and boom, shanka, there you go. All right? That's exactly what I was talking about in our attempts at listening before. You're saying you want to listen, but you're not actually listening. And sometimes you got to hold yourself to account. Right? Now, you just saw a perfect example of it right there.
Yeah.
Right? It's one thing to say the words, but it's another entirely to mean them.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Father. Now, watch out. Here's the sneaky back door for that. Okay, the sneaky back door for that is your ego, right, or residual ego, let's say, is going to try to sneak around back in another way to convince you of the same things that keep you on that superficial level that you had before, but in a way where you don't recognize it. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to have reasons in your mind that you think are valid for not being happy, right? You're going to keep those reasons fairly well obscured and hidden, right? Just so that not being happy can become your demeanor, can become the way you are, right? And you're going to be walking along one day going, I'm not happy, and I don't even remember why the hell I'm not even happy. I don't even remember what the reasons are, but those reasons are lodged away back here somewhere. I think I'm guilty. I think I'm unworthy. I think whatever, all that bullshit, right? Your ego is going to go back there now into the modeling department and try to remodel those thoughts so that they come up in a different way. Okay. And it'll present you with those things in a different way in your life. You'll have people showing up, right? Because we haven't done the forgiveness. You'll have people showing up to present you with an idea of yourself that is not true. Okay. The only one true idea you can hold of yourself that is true is that you are loved and loving, right? Now, I want you to become vigilant for any thought presented by anyone, including your own consciousness, that denies that. Okay. You'll be at a restaurant and you'll say something and someone will call you a bitch or whatever, or you'll be whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how much reaction you have to it. It's always going to be reflective of some idea you hold about yourself in your own mind, because finger on the nose. Okay. And you'll be like, well, that was a new one. No one's called me that before. Or, you know, I get ones all the time. I have somebody wrote to me the other day. So, you know, those on Facebook, I know, right? Incredible. On Facebook, they have those little avatar people that you can make an avatar for your Facebook account. And it goes, choose your avatar, right? This is for my work account. And it goes, what skin complexion do you want, right? So you can create the person. I don't know if you guys have one, but you can think. And I thought, I'm going to be the blackest skinned person I can be. Because like it's an avatar, you can be whoever you want, right? So there was from really dark, like dark African kind of skin tone to like Nordic white fucking, and then yellow and every kind of range of skin color in between. So I thought, I'm going to be, I'm going to be this thing. And then what hair do you want? And I chose blonde, long blonde hair, but in dreadlocks. So I'm like a blonde Rastafarian, whatever. And I'm wearing a beanie, of course, in my thing, and body shape. And I made myself as fat as I possibly could, right? So I was a fat, happy Rastafarian dude. That was my avatar, because that's how I was feeling. I was in that frame of mind where I was like, yeah, man, you know, all good, just like fucking whatever. Anyway, so I put my avatar up on the thing, and not thinking anything of it. And some guy sent me a snapshot of my avatar with the word idiot written across it, like that. And it's like he obviously knew I'm like a aging white fucking whatever, and it was nothing to do with me. And I'm thinking, where has people's sense of fun gone? Where, you know, an avatar, you can be anything. And I'm trying to keep my finger on my nose here. This guy's calling me idiot. And I'm like, of all the things I've been called, like idiot seems to be like the least vindictive or whatever of it. But it really hit me. It was just like, there was a moment there. It was like, he just called me idiot as if, you know, whatever. And it was funny. And for a second, it took me, like literally, it took me quite a while. I'll say a second, but it was quite a while to figure out what was wrong with my avatar in his eyes. You know, I even went on his profile. He wasn't a black person. He wasn't a Rastafarian. So I don't know why, if he was accusing me of cultural appropriation of an image or what the hell, freaking, you know what, people have these social things. Oh, you can't do that. It's cultural appropriation. So, dude, it's a freaking dream. You can do whatever you want. Like, it doesn't, there's no rules here. You know, you make up a rule, you're going to suffer. And anyways, but it took me ages. And then all I could come up with, that he thought I was an idiot because I made an avatar that didn't look like me. And I thought, how boring would it be to make an avatar that actually looked like me? What's the point of having an avatar? Because here I am. I just put my own picture, you know. But anyway, it's funny stuff. So in your thing, Anna, you're going to get stuff show up, right? Choose to be happy. All right. You have to refuse to allow compromise of your happiness into the equation. You've seen now that it took you 5 or 6 good attempts, and I had to push you a bit to actually feel where it is that you were saying that and actually wanted it to be true. Okay. Now, the same thing's going to show up. Some situation is going to come back to show up to take you back into that old frame of reference where you think that the state you were in before you chose to be happy was somehow a valid state. It's not. God's will for you is perfect happiness. Get it? Say it out loud to me. God's will for me is perfect happiness.
God's will for me is perfect happiness.
Now, refuse to allow compromise. Okay? Refuse. Don't defend yourself, but refuse to buy into whatever's presented. Because it will. The ego is going to kick and scream. You can't have perfect happiness. Because. So, no, motherfucker, I'm a child of God. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Right? That was my best, what's that? Samuel Jackson. Right, I got it right. Motherfucker. Your job is to refuse to compromise where death plays a part, Anna. Until I can think up what your homework will be, or until it's given to me, whatever your homework will be, that's your homework.
Okay.
Good.
Mm.
Any-
Yeah.
I love you. Love you guys. It's nice. It's intimate when there's just like three of us. We're having a threesome. It's kind of cool.
Do Sam Jackson one more time.
See you later, motherfuckers.
That's right, motherfucker. Oh, Anna. I'll see you soon,
All right.
motherfucker.
Motherfucker. Bye.
Love you. Oh.